All right. Part three of the as of not named long story, not novel, or of any novelistic type things. But we continue with our protagonist, the unnamed man. If I went 1,000 miles an hour into the west, would I see a sunset almost set? If I were to look behind me, would I never see darkness? I figured if I was going 1,000 miles an hour, I'd be splat on the windshield of a spaceship going 1,000 miles an hour. Huh. The windshield of a spaceship. Does a space shuttle have windshield wipers? The crunch and scrape of my boots keeps a steady time with my breath. The in with the first stride, the out with the second, and repeat. The strange things we think of when we walk. The mind can wander and travel while the body ceaselessly moves forward. There is a will that drives it, but with a thought can stop, sit down at the cafe ahead. A coffee and tortilla would be nice right about now. It's been a long walk and the sun is pounding down. A sweltering heat bouncing off the hard limestone roadbed in the frying pan of Europe. Thinking is an incredible thing. The seamlessly limitless thoughts. What are the thoughts but thin threads of chemicals slithering through the brain? A chemical reaction creating the essence of all humanity, while that and opposable thumbs. Most don't think about the interwoven connection thinking has with the thumb. My shirt is soaked under the weight of the backpack. I cross a bridge over the dry stream bed and walk into the village. The road turns from white limestone gravel to an oily black macadam, the fresh yellow lines snaking their way around the curves and out of sight. The village was empty, every door and window fastened against the heat. The the brown metal rolled window coverings, rectangles of dullness in the houses, against the white and blue of the stucco buildings. The emptiness brings an uneasy stillness. I stand in the square, the tables and the chairs for the cafes neatly stacked on each other against the wall, the white plastic glinting dully in the sun. The windows were shuttered, everything was shuttered. A warm breeze blew through the square, bringing new dust to blow away the old. I dropped my pack in the middle of the road and stretched towards the sun, the breeze turning windier, picking up more dust, coating my face. The world became blurry behind my sunglasses. The water gurgles in a collapsing vacuum in the crinkling plastic bottle. I drain the last of it, savoring its wetness. I turn to the road ahead. Sign said 7.5 kilometers to somewhere with a bar. The stage stops a few kilometers beyond that. I'd started the day hungover in a hotel. There was a festival the night before that went, like many Spanish festivals, until morning. I started walking just a few hours ago, mostly through neighborhoods and on streets. Now the land has opened up. I stop at the last shade tree and there's a concrete fountain and a table. On the top of the fountain, sunk deep into the concrete, is a simple blue tile with a yellow concha, the shell, painted on it. The water came through a thin pipe that fell into the stone basin, eventually overflowing onto the green grass around its base. I don't I don't like to drink the water from the fountains, but many do. It's said to be safe and there for pilgrims to take refreshment. I met a guy earlier who spent a few too many days in the bathroom with a case of something. I took off my outer nylon shirt and dunked it into the basin and wringed it over my head. My hat, submerged, dripping wet, flops back on, the water draining down my face, my mustache a strainer for the larger bits. In this kind of heat, you can do two things. The smart thing is to go inside your house, shutter the windows, and take a nap. I didn't have a house, so I decided to continue forward with the other thing. My shirt, still wet from the dunking, soaked my woolen undershirt, sending a quick shiver up my spine. We'll get to the wool later. Buttoning up the front and fastening the long sleeves of my nylon shirt, I was ready to face the walk in front of me. The macadam turned from white limestone gravel into a rutted country road. The road was a ribbon of dirt in a rocky brown plain, brown grass stubbornly bending in the wind. Groups of olive trees created simple shade, but the road was in the open. My hat, now dry, soaked in sweat, provided little respite from the sun. The rays the rays silently baking the earth deflecting the heat onto my face. The rest of my body was covered in lightweight nylon and, yes, merino wool. A steady breeze was blowing across the road, picking up dust, swirling around, and then blowing itself out on the plains and the grass. The dust hanging for a second until falling inconsequentially back to the ground. There is a sudden stillness when the wind dies. The heat again rises from the road. If Monet's name is pronounced Monay, why is carpet not carpe? Carpe diem. That's the word for the day. Carpe diem. Carpe diem, I muttered to no one, putting the emphasis on the wrong syllable. The words fell silently, at last being ground by the crunch of my boots into the dirt. My foot trips over the edge of a dry rut in the road. No one has passed. It's been an hour. I'm halfway, I think. I stop in the road, the dust swirling around my legs, my hands on my knees, doubled over, breathing, my head spinning in the heat. Just keep going. You have no choice now. Standing quickly, I tottered a bit, the blood rushing from my head, leaving sparkling stars. One day, I said to the rocky scrub plain, my arms outreached as if preaching, none of this will be mine. I laughed aloud for all to hear, but the only answer was the wind. I continued on. The blankness came shortly after that. That blankness when thought goes away and you're here, trudging, struggling, breathing. I looked up at the horizon, could only see more scrub brush, olive trees, and the rocky red soil. I'll walk to that point, I thought. The sun is directly overhead. My nylon clothes feel brittle in the heat. Am I going in the right direction? Back to the thumb and thinking. The thumb's ability to grasp things allowed us to easily and firmly inspect the world up close. When we pick something up, grasping it, bringing it to our nose to inhale the fresh onion smell. We could record things with sticks and scribbles and do art to express our world. We could grasp a plow and harvest crops and store them for the dry season, the extra to be sold to those who can't harvest crops or blew all their harvest money on frivolous things. But they could borrow from the bank and buy the grains that they needed to survive, with the promise of paying back with just a little extra. Then the thumbs grasp the paper that says you owe, and you're kind of screwed until you can pay. Maybe aren't thumbs the right way to think right now, I muttered to myself. The rhythm of my gait slow but steady, but steadily growing slower. I held up my hands, fingers fat with blood and dark in the sun, turning them over, my palms tan, a long lifeline running through, splitting like a tree. It's always good to look at your hands. I kept walking. The breeze had stopped, leaving only the quiet hiss of the earth. Time passed and houses began to appear, desolate outposts along the road. No one came out here. I stopped by a gate and looked across the vast plain behind me. Walking through it, it didn't seem much bigger than the view from under my hat. I crested a hill and walked steadily into the blowing wind. It blew across the road, stirring up a thick dust. I turned my pack to the wind, covering my face from airborne stones, my legs rippling, my shoes filled with dust. Yay!